Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, we're going to be ranking the top 10 free agents the Raiders should consider giving a massive contract to. Every single free agency period that I cover here at Chat Sports, we always look at the big-name guys, and could the Raiders try to bring one of those dudes in? The reason why that I'm talking about this is because last week, when when the NFL increased their salary cap spending, I had multiple fans reach out to me and go, does this mean that the Raiders are going to go out and spend big? For those that do not know, the NFL salary cap is now at $255.4 million, which is 13.6% higher than in 2023. It is the largest salary cap increase ever at $30.6 million. The Raiders, as it stands right now, at $55.48 million in salary cap, which is the ninth most. The one thing, though, that I do want to throw out there, even though it is the largest salary cap increase at 13.6% is actually not all that high compared to some other years. So, yes, the money itself is going up, but the percentage of cap is the number that I personally look at, and at only 13.6%, it's actually not nearly as high as what it could have potentially been. So, to me, I'm doing a show around massive contracts. To me, every single player that you are about to see on this show, every single dude is getting a contract of minimum $15 million per year. And, we can always talk about potential targets, but at the end of the day, I feel like the live streams that I remember, and here's the thing, if the Raiders sign any of these guys that I'm about to mention, not only are we going live, we're turning up Sam On style. That's why I want you to click that subscribe button. That's why I want you to turn on those notifications, because free agency is arguably the most fun time of the year. And the reason why that I say that is because we'll be live all day, every day, waiting for the Raiders to make a move, waiting for NFL moves to happen. We'll sit here, we'll talk about them. It is some of the most fun that I have as a on-air host. And man, oh man, when the Raiders make that move, dude, shit is electric. I don't want you to miss it. Click that subscribe button. So the rankings that you're going to see are, I'm going to go from 10 and I'm going to work my way down to 1, and it's based on my personal rankings of where I would target them. So at number 10 is Kirk Cousins. And yes, Cousins is on this show, and he's solely on this show. Not that I want the Raiders to target Cousins. It's more based on the idea of if the Raiders don't have the ability to trade up for a quarterback, how many times have I said this? To me, the number one option that the Silver and Black would target is Cousins. He has been vouched for by Davante Adams, and the Raiders are going to listen to Adams. They listened to him when Adams vouched for Luke Getsy. Look at him. He's the OC coach, right? And if the Raiders don't have the ability to go up and get a QB in the draft, then I could see them settling in free agency for the number one quarterback in free agency right now. So on today's show, you are going to see three numbers. You are going to see my projection, which is going to be at the very top, and where I would sign that player for the Silver and Black. Then you're going to see PFF's contract projection, and then you are going to see Spotrac's contract projection for every single player. My number here for Kirk Cousins is a little bit less, and it's because if I'm the Raiders, I still want to be able to go out and invest on the offensive line. I want to be able to invest at the defensive tackle position. You have so many other needs that you do have to be able to account for, and you can sign Kirk Cousins. I get it. But if you sign Kirk Cousins and you don't address your offensive line, that means you're going to pay a quarterback over $30 million on a team that's got 3 open free agency spots right now on the offensive line position. It's not a smart use of money, so Cousins comes in here at number 10. Let's go to number 9 on my list of the big contracts that I would be willing to offer this offseason. L'Jarius Sneed, cornerback of the Kansas City Chiefs. And for the Raiders, you might have to spend a little bit of extra money to steal Sneed away from Kansas City, because hold your ears if this hurts your feelings. If I'm Sneed, I'm trying to go back to Kansas City. Why would I leave the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions if it's not for a bag? The only way I'm leaving Kansas City is if I get a bag. And if I'm Kansas City, I'm going to do everything in my power to bring back Sneed, because he's their top corner right now. The deal that I would offer Sneed, and I understand that I'm probably going to have to pay a little bit of extra money to go out and get him, but I also know that Telesco values AFC West experience, so I would offer 3 years, $53 million, with $40 million guaranteed, which is actually probably a little bit more guaranteed money than what he's going to see. But I want to be able to show Sneed that, hey, I want you to bring you over here to the Raiders, and let's make it happen. Sneed's number 9. Number 8 on my list is the dude that if the Raiders were to spend big at the cornerback position, I actually believe it would be Jalen Johnson, cornerback of the Chicago Bears. There's going to be some players on this show that I'm just going to be real with you, probably get franchise tagged, and I think Jalen Johnson could end up being one of those dudes that does end up getting tagged. However, he's got connections with Champ Kelly. Champ Kelly is a big fan of Jalen, and I think Jalen would fit very well with Patrick Graham, and realistically, he's going to fit well with any defense that he plays on because he's coming off a career year. I know it says 4 interceptions. Dude probably should have had 4 or 7, realistically. But for Jalen, I'm willing to offer him a 3-year deal at $55.5 million with $40 million guaranteed. That comes in at about $18.5 million per year. Is corner a need for the Raiders? Yes. However, it's not as big of a need as quarterback is right now. It's not as big of a need as offensive line. It's not as big of a need as some other positions, which you are going to see here on today's show. So this is going to be the pinned comment on the Raiders Reports episode today of looking for massive contract candidates. And if you were going to spend big, over $15 million per year on an NFL free agent, who would it be? You're about to get it with a YouTube ad break. Scroll down, let that ad play, and let me know. Let's go to number 7 on my list. Again, these rankings are based on priority of where I would allocate my money in terms of where I'm trying to look first rather than last. Robert Hunt, offensive guard of the Miami Dolphins. He played right guard predominantly last season for Miami, and at 6'6", 335 pounds, this is a monster of a man that if you're the Raiders, right, and you figure out a way to bring back Jermaine Illuminor, you move Dylan Parham in at center, you could put Robert Hunt in at right guard. And last season, according to the PFF, 547 snaps, had a 77.1 overall grade, a run blocking grade of 74.5, and a pass blocking grade of 75.9. This is somebody that continues to get better and better and better as they progress. He's only 27 years old, and one of the factors that you are going to see on today's show is any defensive player, I am putting them on a 3-year contract. Why? Max Crosby's got 3 years left, and if I'm Antonio Pearson and Tom Telesco, I am trying to connect every single defensive player on a 3-year deal with Crosby. Every offensive player that you're going to see, I'm going to put him on a 2-year deal because I know that the Raiders tried to give Cliff Kingsbury a 2-year deal, and when they value and they look at the offensive side of the football right now, I've been told that the Raiders on the offensive side of the ball are looking on a 2-year window. So if I know that that's a 2-year window, I'm going to offer these free agents on the offensive side of the football 2-year deals. Now, some guys might get 1 year. When I look at PFF and Spotrac, if I'm Robert Hunt, I'm 27 years old, I don't mind the idea of getting a 2-year deal because that means when I'm 29 years old, almost 30, I have another opportunity to hit free agency and get a big-time deal. But the reason why I think Hunt would be willing to take a little bit less money, because he's definitely going to get more than 11.8. Spotrac's very wrong on this one. I lean more close to PFF. The reason why I'm willing to offer him 15.5, I'm going to give him the contract fully guaranteed. Fully guaranteed at 27 for an offensive lineman. Then you have the opportunity to hit the market big again at 29. I'll give you a few more players that I'd be willing to spend big on if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders, but I wouldn't be able to do today's show if it wasn't for our awesome sponsor, Game Time. Nation, create an account, redeem code RaidersChat for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events, it shouldn't be stressful. Forget about planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, baseball, concerts, basketball, comedy, theater, and a whole lot more. It is the perfect app for buying tickets when planning on visiting Las Vegas. And one of my favorite things that Game Time has is they have a section for, under $50, which if I can take somebody to an event, like my fiance Alex, if I got a kid, and you're like, I don't know if my child is going to be able to remember this a few years down the road. If you get an event for under $50, they will remember what you end up doing with them just because of the memories that you're going to be able to create. So I honestly want you guys to check out Game Time because the reason why this app is a difference changer, it's a very intelligent app. And here's just the God honest truth. If they have a seat available, they don't want nobody to sit in that seat. They will give you that seat at a lowest price guaranteed because they know, well, if nobody sits in that seat, we're not going to make any money off it. So even if we got to give it away for $1, You sit in that seat, they know if you're there, you're going to buy some food. You're going to buy some drinks and shit. If I'm getting a ticket for way, way less than I thought it was going to cost, I'm going to spend even more money when I'm at the event. That's why Game Time is genius. So download the Game Time app, $20 off with code RaidersChat. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code RaidersChat for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's go to number 6 on our list, and it's Kevin Dotson, the offensive guard for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Dotson is an intriguing player to me. He can play left guard. He can play right guard. Dotson, if it was up to me, considering the year that he just had, I would just keep him at right guard because he had 881 snaps, had an 85.2 overall grade, 68.3 pass blocking grade, but an 88.8 run blocking grade. Like, the offense that the Raiders are going to run, I do think fits Kevin Dotson well, and I do think Dotson is better than Robert Hunt. However, I do think that Robert is a better overall offensive lineman for what the Raiders are going to try to run this year with Luke Getsy. And if you're going to spend big on offensive guard, there's only 2 options. When I say spend big, again, I'm talking $15 million plus per year. It is Kevin Dotson. It is Robert Hunt. Those are the only 2 names. If you want to have my best bang for the buck offensive lineman for the Silver and Black, his name's going to be coming up here in a little bit. But I would be willing to offer him a 2-year, $35 million deal with $35 million guaranteed. And $17.5 million per year for an offensive guard is very, very good money. I'm willing to pay him a little bit extra more money because I see Dotson signing a 4-year contract. Like, if you're coming off the year that Dotson had and the year before he was not very good, I would recommend, if I was his agent, and say, hey, you're coming off a career year. I don't know if you're going to have a better year. Let's try to sign a longer-term deal. That way we hone in, and then we have another opportunity when you're 31 years old, 30 years old, 32 years old, to hit free agency again for the last time. So the reason why I'm willing to pay him a little bit extra money, and the reason why I feel like I have to pay him a little extra money, because I don't see him coming for anything less on a short-year deal. Let's go to number 5 on my list of Raiders free agent targets to spend big on, defensive tackle DJ Reader. The biggest knock that I have on Reader is his inability to stay healthy, because when you look at some of the other DTs that are about to come up here on the show, Reader's the one where, yeah, don't get me wrong, when he's on the field, he's a hell of a player. When he's not on the field, though, which is more often than not, because he does battle injuries, it can be a little bit annoying. And to me, the Raiders got to spend big at DT. Like, you got to be able to figure out a guy that you can bring in, and if you're looking for upside, who does have injury risk, but it's not going to be nearly as expensive as some of the other defensive tackles in this year's group, Reader could be your dude. And ESPN has recently linked Reader to the Silver and Black, and my contract projection for him is 3 years, $45 million with $25 million guaranteed. I'm not willing to give Reader as much guaranteed money because of the past injury issues that he's had, but I am willing to pay him somewhere in between what PFF and Spotrac believes is the value for him. I want the Raiders to address the middle of the offensive line and of the defensive line. You have to win in the trenches. And if there's something that I'm starting to grow with Telesco a little bit more on, is anybody watch the show knows that it doesn't matter unless you win in the trenches. And I've always said that. Telesco does have that reputation for trying to build in the trenches. And DJ Reader, though, comes in here at number 5 because if you're going to go more bang for your buck, right? There's 2 names. There's DJ Reader, and then there is Leonard Williams. And Leonard Williams comes in here at number 4, defensive tackle of Seattle. Williams grew up a Raider fan. Williams grew up on the West Coast, right? I know a lot of Raider fans would love Leonard, and if I'm Williams, I'm looking at, all right, I can actually probably make more money in with the Raiders in Nevada because I'm not going to have to pay nearly the taxes that I'm going to have to pay. On top of that, I'd be willing to bet that Leonard Williams' memorabilia as a Raider fan would sell way, way more than it would on any other NFL team out there. And if I'm a free agent in today's day and age, guess what? That's going to be something that I look at. It's going to be something that I consider. Now, Williams has played with the Giants. He also has those connections with Patrick Graham when Graham was the defensive coordinator of the Giants. And even though, like, you look at 2020, like 11 and a half sacks, that's a career year for Williams. And those are the numbers that I would be trying to bring back. I do anticipate that Seattle does everything in their power to bring him back. But if I offer him a 3-year deal worth $50 million at $16.7 million per year, I'm going to give him a little bit more extra of the guarantee money, but you're still looking at a dude who's 27-ish years old, 28 years old. He might actually be older than that, 29 years old, who's got then at defensive tackle, I view it the same way that I do offensive lineman, where as a DT, like you're seeing guys play in their mid 30s. If you're Williams, I'm willing to take that 3-year deal, match himself up next to a guy like Crosby. I'm hoping the Raiders extend Malcolm Kuntz, and you build more of that center core with the silver and black on defense. Let's go to number 3 here on my list, and he's the number 1 free agent out there, but he's number 3 on my list because when I did these rankings, it was based on need, it was based on fit, and it was also based on money. And the person that's going to cost you the most money that's not a quarterback is Chris Jones. Hell, there's actually a chance that Chris Jones ends up making more money per year than Kirk Cousins. Like, if you told me Chris Jones at the end of this year makes more money than Cousins, I actually don't know if I'd be all that surprised by it, because if you're Kansas City, you got to do everything in your power to bring him back. And they might franchise tag him. Here's the thing, though. He ain't playing on that franchise tag. He's going to demand top dollar considering the year that he had and the fact that the Chiefs just won back-to-back Super Bowls. And if you're an NFL team out there like the Raiders, I'll tell you this, the only way that you're going to get him is if you beat the Chiefs in terms of how much money you're willing to offer him. And the contract that I would offer Chris Jones if I was the Raiders to try to steal him away from Kansas City at almost 30 years old would be essentially the deal that the Rams gave Aaron Donald. The Rams gave Aaron Donald 3 years, $95 million, fully guaranteed. And this might surprise some people. Chris Jones has been the best defensive tackle in the NFL for the past 2 years. Like, if you want to just look at who's been better, Aaron Donald or Chris Jones, I think people that don't watch football would say Aaron Donald, but I'm telling you, it's been Chris Jones. Let's give him a deal. Very similar. 3 years, $96 million with $96 million guaranteed. Like, if you want to just talk about who's the best player in free agency, it's Chris Jones. The fact that we'd steal him away from Kansas City, that's an extra pick. But you're going to have to pay him more than what Kansas City would be willing to pay him. And if I'm Chris Jones, I'd be willing to take less money to try to get a 3rd straight Super Bowl than I would going to play for the Raiders. Like, realistically, this number might not even be high enough. It's just what I would be willing to pay him to take him away from Kansas City. So let's have this question here. Would you give Chris Jones over $30 million per year to take him away from the Chiefs? Give me a yes, or I want you to give me a no. It's a lot of money for somebody who's not a quarterback. But I look at it as you're getting the best defensive tackle in football, and you're taking him away from the Chiefs. I see a lot of people saying absolutely. It does handcuff you a little bit. I like the idea. I would just go with these 2 other players over him because of the fact that it's not going to cost you nearly as much money. Let's go to number 2 here on my list. It's Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle for the Miami Dolphins. And this guy's got tons, and I mean tons of connections with Raiders coaches right now, especially Rob Leonard. And Rob Leonard worked close with Christian when they were together back in Miami. And there's also been some ties, I believe, with Patrick Graham on top of that with Wilkins. And if anybody's watched Hard Knocks, they'll know that he's a great human being, a great locker room fit, and I think that he would do wonders for this Raiders defense. My offer to Wilkins would be a 3-year deal at $60 million with $42 million guaranteed. I'm willing to give him $20 million per year. PFF thinks he's only going to get a 1-year deal. Spotrac thinks that he's going to end up getting a 4-year deal. If I was Wilkins, I would try to be around that 3-year deal for the simple fact of if you go 4 years, you're going to be 31 years old when you hit free agency again, almost 32. If I was Wilkins' agent, I'd say based off of NFL values, and even when I say it to myself, if I say a player is 30 years old, okay, and then I say a player is 31 years old, think about in your mind how much older 31 to 30 is. I might say that because I'm 31 now, and I just after being 30, but that's how I feel. And the more and more closer you start getting into those 30s, the more and more I would try to say, if I was an agent, stay away from that number when you're about to hit free agency again. Which means then, coming in at number 1, for anybody that's watched this show, it's probably not too much of a surprise. It's Justin Madubuike. And Madubuike to me is number 1. And it's another player that, I'll be real, if I'm Baltimore, I franchise tag him, and I make some team. If they want him, hey, you got to give me 2 first-round picks for him. If I'm the Raiders, though, and I'm going to allocate my money, I'm going to allocate a big contract. If he hits the free agency market, this is the guy that I'm going to try to go out and get because he's only 26 years old, and he can do a lot of different things, and he's got a good connection with Rob Ryan from their time previously with Baltimore, but it's his ability to get after the quarterback. It's his ability to stop the run. To me, at age 26, for what you're going to have to pay him, he's my number 1 priority. Is Chris Jones better? Yes. But would I be more inclined to pay Justin Madubuike $23 million per year, and then, who knows, maybe I could re-sign Josh Jacobs? Or just pay Chris Jones, right? Like, That's why he's number one on my list. PFF, Spotrac both have him at 4-year deals. And if it took a 4-year deal to get this deal done, I would 100% do it. But as I stated earlier, I am doing 3-year deals to pair them with Max Crosby and go forward. On top of that, if I'm his agent, I go, you want to hit free agency again when you're 29. Because hitting free agency at 29 compared to hitting free agency again at 30, I think it cost him millions upon millions of dollars. So $23 million per year, 3 years, a nice amount of change with $49 million guaranteed. So let's roll through these one more time. My Raiders free agent targets that I'd be willing to give a massive contract to. When I say massive, I'm talking more than $15 million per year. And they are ranked based on needs and overall how much it's going to cost. Cousins at number 10, he's the only quarterback worthy in free agency, and if you don't think that you're going to be able to draft one, that's the guy to look at. Snead and Jalen Johnson are the top 2 cornerbacks. Robert Hunt, Kevin Dotson at offensive guard. And then coming in here at 5 through 1, all defensive tackles. If the Raiders spend big in free agency, it better damn be on a defensive tackle, because that, to me, is the biggest team need that they have outside of finding a quarterback. And I'm not saying that offensive line's not a need either. It is. But with the talent that's at DT, this is the year that the Raiders need to spend big. Here's some honorable mentions on top of that. Josh Allen and Brian Burns, they're both probably going to get $24, $25, $26 million per year. If the Raiders added them, I wouldn't be mad about it, I'll tell you that. Antoine Winfield is the only safety in this free agency class that I'd be willing to offer $15 million. It's just not that big of a need. Damian Lewis is not somebody that I'm going to give $15 million per year for him. He's the one guy I'm breaking this rule for a little bit, because I think also massive contract can be years. Damian Lewis, to me, could be a dude that I'd be willing to give like a 4-year deal to at $9 million per year because of his connection with James Craig and his connection and how he would fit with this Raiders offense. Last name is Bryce Huff. This one makes me a little bit nervous, but if you were to tell me who's a player in 2-3 years from now that didn't get a lot of money that ends up being a very dominant defensive end, UDFA has worked his freaking tail off and in limited snaps has been very, very good. I'll admit, though, I would rather, and the reason why you didn't see any defensive ends on the show is I would rather the Raiders give an extension to Malcolm Kuntz to tie him with Max Crosby for, I'd give Malcolm Kuntz a 3-year extension. Right now, he's got 1 year left. That ties him with Max Crosby, and you're going to give these guys a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather allocate the Malcolm Kuntz money to make him happier overall. If you enjoyed today's show and you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you. Tell your friends about the Raiders Report. Continue to spread the word here, because that's the only way we're going to continue to make this show grow.